what happens to us as we age? We get into a rut. There's a habit. There's some memory that sits there, and you know, how do we change that? Because I mean, it happens with anything. I mean, it happens repeatedly with me. You know, I don't know. I go to the shop and I'm sort of just going through the motions of it, and I buy something that really wasn't on my grocery list, but I always buy it. You know, I don't need it anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know.
So yeah, or you say something, just that's what you usually say, and without being, I don't know, like being in the moment, you know. Yeah, yeah. It's an interesting thing. I believe that the habit, I think I mentioned this once before, seems to, from what I've read, seems to live within the nervous system. Okay. And so there's a memory there. And so the nervous system then instructs whatever it's got to instruct, whatever part of the body that's relevant at the moment, you know, based on what is embedded and stored there. You know, almost like a computer. Yeah.
It is an interesting thing, isn't it? You know, because I mean, like as we strive to become, you know, more aware and open, yeah, how do you address some of that habitual stuff?
Yeah, it is, and it's, I guess one has to, you see, because otherwise you're just regurgitating something that is not spiritual. Okay, it's not in the moment. It's not conscious and aware. Okay, it's just a sort of robotic reproduction of. Yeah.
I'm reading a book at the moment written by I think she was an ABC journalist for a chunk of her career, and the book is called Phosphorescence.
Okay.
And she talks about, it's sort of a fairly wide-ranging conversation so far, actually, but the underlying theme behind the book is, you know, like there's animals and insects and so on that emit light, you know, just naturally.
Yeah.
And she talks a lot about a lot of research, particularly research done in Japan, which also suggests, well, let me take a step back.
Okay.
And she talks about how people, you know, are often referred to in language as bright or glowing or,
yeah,
you know, those sorts of terms, you know, who light up the room when they walk into it, and, you know, all of those sorts of terms, which, and she says that her mother was one of those people, and that. And then she goes on to talk about some of this research that's being done in Japan, where they actually put a few people who were subject to a study into a perfectly pitch black room, and they put in very sensitive light sensors, and they demonstrated how from the faces of the people who were in these dark rooms there was a light emission, and they said that the extent of the light was about 50 times less than our ability to see it with our own eyes, but nevertheless it is there. You know?
Okay.
And that kind of struck a chord with me a bit, in the sense that when you hear about, you know, when you talk about, you know, like spiritual masters, you know, that they have this radiance about them, you know, this, you know, which,
Yeah.
And she goes on then to talk about, some of the key emotions, or one key emotion in particular around the idea of being radiant as an idea, and that's the emotion of awe.
Okay.
Mm.
Interesting.
She says very underrated and neglected emotion, but when you think about awe in the sense of looking at a sunrise or a sunset,
Yeah.
or people who might chase storms because of the awe and wonder associated with the power of nature, or looking into the night sky, or looking into the face of a newborn baby, or whatever. It's awe, which is the emotion which tends to bring that openness.
Okay.
Because you just sit there, wouldn't sit, but you're before that happening with an openness and a wonder and an amazement. And she suffered like really bad illnesses, like several bouts of cancer and stuff like that. And she talked about the light that got her through those lowest times.
Right.
So it's a really interesting topic, like one I hadn't really thought,
And
about.
it's the topic about insects that produce light, or is it about human emotions like awe?
Yeah, the idea is, I mean, I don't know where she's heading with it at this stage, but my sense of it is the idea of it is that we all have the ability to enlighten, our own world, to be a shining light, and it's this discussion which she likes to sort of back up with, scientific data and that sort of thing as well,
Right.
to sort of say, well, look, this is not just, a nice feel-good sort of thing. It's actually a fact, that these things can happen.
So is she saying that an awe would, for the person who could see it, the human would like a master would shine a certain color light?
Yeah.
Okay.
And she talks about, the challenges of modern living, like with stress and all that sort of stuff, and how, being in touch with nature. She swims in the ocean most days, like down in Sydney, like so out near the heads and stuff like that.
Yeah.
With a group of women, and she just talks about, when they're out there swimming early in the morning and they see all sorts of creatures in the ocean and colours and and the conditions of the water and all of that sort of thing.
Right.
And she finds it a bit like a walk in the forest or sitting in the sun, or that it's so nourishing at so many levels of your actual being, by just being completely open and present to the environment that you're in.
Right.
And then she sort of talks a little bit about, the challenges with modern living and, when you're in crowded environments and noisy environments, as to how that can be, have a negative impact on your health. And therefore the importance of just doing those simple little things like going out and sitting in the sun in a park, in green space, or going for a swim, or going for a walk in the bushed area, and those sorts of things.
Yeah. A few days ago, Sue and I just got in the car, and it takes 10 minutes for us to get to the coast, okay, facing west. And we just parked. It was a miserable day, okay, really miserable. And it's just a small little car park right on top of the sea, and we sat, and one of the things that we exclaimed on was how at different places the sea constantly changed color. Okay, you know, you once used to the light and the dark and so on, for shallow and deep maybe, but this was something different. It sort of like came and went, and so it was so remarkable that we commented on it, you know, to each other. So so yeah, it sort of fits in with what you're saying and what she sees in the sea maybe. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
again, it's just a reminder, though, isn't it, to be, you know, on the point that you make, you know, not to be habitual, to try and be aware and just notice, you know. I mean, I really try hard to make a habit of it in a conscious way, you know, with the early morning walk, you know, to look at the sky and look at the water and, you know, the trees around me, and listen for the birds in the trees and all of those sorts of things.
Right.
And it's sort of, as I've been listening to this book, I sort of thought, you know, I should really take that into my day more, you know. You know, and I like the idea of, you know, just sitting there and listening for the birds, you know, I mean, or the insects, or just the sound of the waves, or the sound of the rain, or whatever, you know, just to listen for it, because it's easy to just have it there as background noise, or, you know, white noise,
or ignore it,
or ignore it,
not be conscious of it while it's happening. Yeah. We're so fortunate here that I mean, in our garden, as you know, we can have up to 14 parrots, wild parrots coming in, and other birds interacting, mixing. Then we walk in the forest, and you get so many sounds. Okay, and if you listen very carefully, some distant bird sounds as well, and different times of the year too, different types of beetles. Okay. So yeah.
But it's all quite calming, though, isn't it? You know, when you listen for those sounds, it seems to you know, to dissipate the stress and tension, doesn't it? You know.
Yeah, if you consciously listen, what we sometimes find ourselves doing is that we go for a walk and we don't stop talking. Okay, then that's a whole different ball game. Okay, and
or even to just stand in the yard there and just consciously feel the sun on your skin.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I stand in the street and do that. I do, just outside, because we are a south-facing house. Okay, so we don't get sun. Okay, except in summer. You know, then it's above us. But otherwise, the whole of winter, we don't see sun at all. And so if you want some sun, you go for a walk, or you go and stand in the south-facing street, you know. So, the north-facing street. Yeah, sorry, not south. Yeah, and where the garage door is, the street's on that side. And yeah. Otherwise, we sometimes just open the garage door and sit in the garage in a camping chair to get some sun.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, but it is amazing how we just do things from habit. And I guess, I suppose humans are put together that way for a reason, because I think if you drive in a motor car and you need immediate action, you don't think about it. It's just reactive. Okay, if you need to suddenly swerve, it's a reactive thing. It's not something that is. It's part of your built-in memory, isn't it?
But I think on the flip side of that coin, though, is there's other times in our life, like stages of our life, where, you know, like from a work perspective or whatever, where you no longer need to undertake the roles that you're traditionally used to undertaking. You know, that it's okay to try and do something new and different. It's quite liberating to feel that way.
Yeah.
Rather than have this sort of mindset that, like a career is a one trajectory journey. It's okay to step off and do something completely different, and that's good for you as well.
Yeah. Again, because you're conscious in that moment of making that decision and doing something new. Yeah.
Otherwise, you just fall into that habitual path of, well, this is the way it's got to be, and it doesn't need to be that way at all.
Yeah, it's like getting in your car to go from A to B, and you get to B, and you think, how the hell did I get here?
Well, there's that, or even, saying, okay, well, I'm not going to go that way today. I'm going to go a different way.
And absolutely, and I try to do that as often as I can. Find a new road. Okay? I really do. I've been doing that for years, and it's quite amusing, I think, for somebody else like Sue to observe that. Yeah. We drive past a coffee shop. Went to get some pictures printed, and I'll come back to that, the why for that as well. And then there's a new coffee shop. Okay, your turn. We're planning to have a cup of coffee, but we got to have a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
I said I'd come back to the why. A few days ago, I decided that I don't know quite how the idea came, but Sue and I were chatting, and if I remember how the idea came, I'll come back to it. But I got this idea to write children's stories for my grandchildren.
Nice.
Okay. Now, it's not as crazy as it seems. Okay. Because
doesn't seem crazy at all.
My kids all grew up, all 9 of them, with having stories told to them by myself. Okay. And very seldom did I read them a story. It was 9 times out of 10, I would make up the story on the spur of the moment, sitting on the side of their bed. Okay. And they did have, as it turned out, sort of just naturally at that time, was like the first generation of children, had their character and the character's name. So the story was always about the character or characters, and then the second generation had their own characters, because there was like a gap, quite a big gap between when you stopped telling stories to when you started again, and with young ones. And so sort of deep down from a long time ago, as a young adult, in my 20s, I was telling stories to children. Okay. So I thought, well, I've got grandchildren now, and what a beautiful gift for them. I think it's a beautiful gift.
I do too. Yeah.
I'd create a story, put it in the format of a book. With Sue says she will draw the pictures because she's very much that way inclined, and so on, and more so than I am, and that she will add the pictures after I've written the book, and we'd format it, and then send it on to the grandchild as a present. And if the parents choose to print it, that's fine. Okay. Otherwise, it's then just an ebook that they can put onto the computer or even onto the TV or something for the child or whatever. Okay. And we've got all different ages of grandchildren. The youngest aren't a year yet, and the other ones are just turning a year, and then going all the way up to my two oldest grandchildren. I won't write between them stories, but they've just left school now in their 20s, and the others are sort of around 10, 11, 12, somewhere there.
So how many grandchildren do you have?
9.
Wow, fantastic.
Yeah. That includes on Sue's side. We just always just regard them all as
yeah, absolutely.
We don't exclude anybody for any reason, and so and they're all over the place, South African, the Netherlands, and some here who are here, Perth. So and I thought, it's so I decided to listen to an ebook on the Fundamentals 101 on creating a children's storybook. So that's what I've been reading now, or listening to, actually. It's an audio. I've taken your example, and I've started. What's that app called now? Audible. Huh? Do you use Audible as well?
Yeah.
And so this is now my second book, so I've got some, and I'm glad I did, because there were some really good tips on how to organize yourself, and that was the big thing. It was absolutely basic 101 stuff, and but you don't automatically, when you're not an author, or you don't think of how to store things, how to keep track of things, and you just sort of think, oh, that should be simple. But he pointed out some really interesting things, so I'm pleased about that. And I started jotting down some ideas in the meantime, in the last day or two. So that's what he recommends to start. Is just allow the intuition just to come wherever you are on ideas, and just jot them down. And the interesting thing he said in the book too, and that is, we are logical people, and we are emotional people. Okay? And he says, don't mix the two when you're writing. Okay?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He says, when you're writing, it's only emotion. Okay. And if your logic or your intellect wants to come in because of some word, he said, don't allow it to. Okay, just carry on. Okay. And then there's a time for editing and logic and layout and so on. And so that's when your logic comes in. And
that's a good idea, actually.
It really is. It really is. I would never have thought of it. Historically, when I write just business type stuff, the two are totally mixed all the time. Okay? And you judging it, and you editing it all at the same time of writing.
At the same time,
But it's interesting with children's stories. He said even with fiction, if you write adult fiction, same rule applies. So that's it's going to be interesting to see how that turns out.
So how many books do you need to write?
One at a time.
One at a time.
I've got a 1 year, grandchild turning 1, and I think it's about a few weeks. I'm not sure, 2 weeks or something. So I might try and get that, give me the motivation to go to, but to get started. And another interesting thing that he said is, if you do children's writing as a hobby, then don't write in the same environment physically that you do your work in.
Okay. Yep. Well, that makes sense too. Yeah.
Yeah, get out of that space. Get away
Mm.
from your desk, or whatever you do, your computer.
Mm.
And he said, preferably, don't write your stories on a computer. He said,
Let's
you
write by
can't.
hand. No.
No, no.
No.
He says, you can't write fast enough. You can't type fast enough. Okay. He says, dictate your stories.
Well, that'll work in well for you then, you know.
So, yeah. It says all phones have got a recording button. You can record them, or your computers can record them in front of your computer. In fact, you can now record and have it typed at the same time.
At the same time, yeah, which makes the editing process a lot easier, doesn't it?
Yeah. Then you just take the whole thing and plonk it on Grammarly or someplace like that, and so edit it. So anyway, it's going to be fun I think, to start. And I've been looking for a hobby, and I've been looking for some fun. You know, I haven't been able, since I've not been well. It's really been a hassle. But now that my hearing is back, okay, I don't have that head anymore. At least I can now. I feel a little bit more human. I went to the audiologist, okay, and but she looked in my ear and said, "It's full of gunk. I can't do anything with you. I'm not a doctor," she says to me. And so got in the car and went to the GP, and I said, audiologist said, "I've got gunk in my ear." Okay. I had a look, and she said, "Yeah, particularly in the one ear." And rinsed it all out, and I was a different person.
Wow. Yeah.
The channel has got red because of all that gunk, and so I'm going to give you just some drops to get rid of the inflation or whatever it is that's making your channel red. And so I said, take it for a week, and you won't know the difference. And it's worked. Okay. And so feeling a lot better, not having that echo, like talking in a cave. The last time I chatted to you, it was terrible.
Yeah, I could see you struggling with it.
Yeah, it really was. But so that's behind me. Now I can also when you like that, I tend to comfort eat,
Yeah.
You eat, it might be plant-based, but it's junk plant-based. And I think that's worse than other type of junk food, okay? So, I've got the ability when I'm not ill or not to discipline myself pretty well. So I'm back now to not eating plant junk.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. So that might well lead to something new. We'll see how that.
Well, I strongly suspect it might, because I mean it's sort of ticks all those boxes about, doing something that you're sort of passionate about and love, and something that just sort of comes naturally to you, just sort of flows from you. So yeah, I think it.
And it's for a purpose.
Yeah.
It's for a purpose to give gifts to the grandchildren.
Yeah.
And you're doing it for the grandchildren. You're not doing it for yourself at all.
No, no, it's quite a selfless thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And if I can have fun doing it, then that's going to be marvelous. And as you know, I've been struggling with ideas of really, because other things have sort of grown out of them. Things even having difficulty in reading fiction. I've got some fiction books that I used to love. Okay, really did, years gone by, and I pick it up and I read one page and I think, I can't.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I've been doing up to now is just reading Logos, but they certainly, the way he writes and the books and so on, you can only take so much at any time, because it's not like it's a story or like the stories in the Bible or something like that. You can read Job and you can use your imagination, and you can. It's quite an interesting story depending on your consciousness at the time of reading Job, but it's not like that.
No.
Yeah.
No.
So yeah, and I need to get back to also chanting again, because while I've really been in Australia largely, I haven't been doing spiritual exercises. Haven't been doing physical exercises either, other than a little walk here and there. So,
no, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's kind of like, like as we started out tonight, it's just habitual behaviour rather than conscious behaviour, isn't it?
Yes, that's exactly what it is. You lived. You wake up. Hey, I've woken up. I had breakfast. Okay, that's fine. I'm not actually hungry, but it's breakfast time. Okay, breakfast, and sit down at your computer. You do something, and then you go to bed. Okay, and you look forward to going to bed. Don't have to worry about the next 8 hours, or whatever. Don't have to think about it. Don't have to be conscious. That's not life. That's not living.
No, it's not, is it? I mean, even just being spontaneous enough to sort of say, well, I'm not going to bed tonight.
Yeah.
I'm going to go and do something else. Like, I mean, it's like, it's sort of like, what on earth are you talking about? Like,
Yeah.
or even just the idea of like, well, I'm going to fast today. I'm not going to eat today.
Yeah.
What do you mean? It's lunchtime. It's breakfast time.
That's right. Absolutely. And and I can do that when I'm not feeling down in the dumps or not feeling pain or something. Then I can go. Even in the last year, I've gone 5 days without eating. Okay. I remember telling you about it a long time ago, but now, yeah, I feel the hunger pains like it's unbelievable. But it's just the logical mind, the spontaneity, the nervous system, I suppose. Now I've learned that everybody's against you inside you. You don't eat. So, ready to slap you around.
Yeah, strange, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. But again, your frame of mind, I think, also frames your day. Okay. I'll give you an example.
It's a good way to describe it, actually.
I received an email from the Get Set Up services. This new services now where
yep.
take a class, and they've taken about 5 people this week and sort of launched it to see how it goes. And mine's probably going to be end of August or early September. But anyway, I got an email from them a number of days ago saying, let's have a meeting, okay? And there's the time. It was an invitation, a Zoom invite, and I was down in the dumps and I read it. To the hell, I'll wait for the recording because it's 2 a.m. in the morning, okay, for me. But no, I'm not going to get up at 2 a.m. Okay. This morning, I actually woke up on the dot at 3 a.m. And I couldn't go back to sleep. I was wide awake, which is unusual for me. And anyway, I came out here and I accepted the invitation for tomorrow morning, 2 a.m. Okay.
Good.
Yes, a different frame of mind, That's what I'm trying to say, I was in a different frame of mind when I accepted it to when I had mentally rejected it. I didn't say no on the invitation. I just didn't answer it. So, yeah, interesting. So, yes, we are framed by our mental attitude.
That's so true. And sometimes that framing takes you into all sorts of, rehearsing scenarios and all that sort of stuff, doesn't it? Rather than just being open to, whatever shows up.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I agree. And it's sometimes very out of the ordinary if you respond to something that just shows up. Okay. And it can make you feel very uncomfortable.
But maybe at our age, it's important that we do feel uncomfortable again. Because maybe at our age, it's important to feel uncomfortable again.
Yeah.
To feel as if you're working, up to your limits or beyond, and
Yeah.
Because otherwise you just get into that habitual behavior, don't you?
Yes, you do. Okay. It's so easy. You don't have to think. You don't have to do anything out of the ordinary. You don't have to act. Just do. Yeah. Yeah.
I think you've inspired me.
Okay.
Well, it is, isn't it? Because it's just so easy to choose to do nothing.
Yes. And you don't have to choose. It happens automatically.
Yeah.
Yeah. And often, if you're reading a book also, watching an intellectual, educational TV program might also, But I'll tell you what's inspired me is the Commonwealth Games.
Has it? Okay.
I always, before coming to Australia, let's just call it 4 years, I've had no interest in any sport whatsoever. Okay. But, up to the day I left South Africa, I enjoyed watching all sorts of sport. I would go and watch cricket games, I'd watch tennis games, rugby games, and occasionally hockey games. Because I used to play all those sports, okay? And so I enjoyed watching them. And then you come, it just died. It just died quickly and easily. Maybe for the first few weeks of arrival, I tried to watch South African games and teams that I supported and so on. And I go with people to watch the sports too, that sort of social interaction and so on. And then it died. And then the Commonwealth Games came up, and I started watching something. And because Seven predominantly showed anything that Australia was in, okay, and I'm glad that it did, okay, because I couldn't get over the quality of each and every Aussie in their playing. They were modest to an incredible degree, okay, and they were kind, they were generous, they were helpful to other people. They supported the disabled games in a lot of different ways, okay. And the TV was really good at pointing out those sort of qualities from some of those people. And I just fell in love with the Aussie sportsman. Okay, I really did. Sue and I would watch together, and we'd say, "Just look at that." Okay, a guy loses a boxing match or something, but he goes and then puts his arm around the other guy and says, "Well done, congratulations, you deserved it." Okay, and that would happen, right throughout the games. And also the Aussies really, won an enormous. They won 67 gold medals. Okay, and I don't know how many medals in total. And I think it's about 2 or 3 above England. So between England and the Aussies, um, and so yeah, I really enjoyed that, and I thought, now, you know, um, even when I watched the women play cricket at the Commonwealth Games, they were really, I mean, they were tense. They were, fortunately, they won gold, but it was a near miss. Okay, and the way that they held together when they were really losing on the last game. Okay, and already the commentators were saying this is a lost game. Okay, and they came back. Okay, because they didn't give up. Okay, they actually stuck in there, and the captain was marvelous in motivating the team to stick in there, and then it just turned like that, and they won. Okay, so yeah, I've got a new. I really enjoyed it. The next Commonwealth Games is in Victoria. Okay.
Yeah, it's sort of interesting because they didn't really say it was a city as such. They're just saying in the whole of the state.
Yes. No, and that's on purpose. Okay. Because it's Victoria State that is hosting it. Okay, not Brisbane. Is Brisbane what's in Victoria?
Well, I think a lot of it was going to be around, Melbourne, but
Melbourne, yeah.
But no, but you're right. It's going to be in all sorts of regional centres and everything. So
yeah, and they showed a quick glimpse of Victoria and where in 4 years' time, and here there were these little towns, okay, that are going to be part and parcel of the game. So I don't know what they've got in mind, but it sounds very interesting. They had a handover from Birmingham to Victoria, and they had traditional Australians, Aborigines. What do you call them? Aborigines.
Aborigines,
yeah. Aborigines there to accept it, and also to bless Birmingham as well. So there they were at the end ceremony, which was a very different sort of ceremony, but yeah. So
they're I don't know whether you've had much exposure to the Indigenous populations. They're obviously very tribal, as I guess they are in Africa, but they're very culture very connected to the earth.
Okay.
Very much connected to the earth and the spirit of the earth and the environment in which they live. And it's sort of interesting because in this book, that I'm listening to at the moment, she was telling a story about when she went up to a remote Aboriginal community in far north Queensland. And she was invited to a women's ceremony up there. And she said the fascinating thing about it is they gave her and the others that were invited a protocol. And the protocol was basically, I can't remember the name of the local community, but it's basically, okay, so when you come here, this is our time. So forget about the time that you've come from. When you're here, it's our time. And it's the time that comes from the heartbeat of the earth.
Okay.
And it was really, and they have, I think she called it part of it, there was a crying ceremony. And it was almost like a cry of gratitude, of, my mother and my mother's mother and my mother's mother's mother and
right.
And a cry of appreciation and a cry of acceptance of the hardship, but also the tenacity to continue and the next generation that comes along, sort of thing. It's really, I thought it was quite fascinating because that sort of earth focused culture was so grounding, if that's, no pun intended, it's like it's so, took them right back to, the literal presence of the, the pulse of the planet, so.
Interesting.
And I think a big part of the tragedy that is probably still unfolding here in one sense is there still really hasn't been a recognition of, what a national treasure the Indigenous population are. It really is one of, they're a problem in the community, and and what do we need to do to solve that problem? It's really not about acknowledgement of, the many thousands of years that they've been, living in this place. So.
Yeah, there appears to me from my observation of this very short time that I've been here, that there's a lot of sort of acknowledgement towards the Indigenous people, and days of apology and ceremonies that happen, and far more than there ever was in South Africa.
I think that the biggest criticism of that at the moment, though, it seems to just be a hollow ritual now.
Yeah, okay.
Rather than it's lost its
sincerity.
Yeah.
And do you think that would change with the kids of today when they grow up because they're all at school together? Or is it something that again is in bed in the parents and in the children?
Yeah, and probably the media influence, as well. But I think part of that awareness, though, of those that have come before you, I think that's, we were talking about memory, like the memory within the nervous system, and there's probably a genetic memory as well, that
right, yeah,
we're not as conscious of, perhaps, so I think that maybe part of that awareness, provides an opportunity to think about some of those things. And if you think about it, like with a culture that's grounded in the planet, it can go back, almost to the dawn of creation, can't it? That memory.
Yeah.
So,
Right. It's interesting. Sue and I had a discussion because I'm still from my reading that humanity started in sort of North Africa, okay, and sort of where Ethiopia is today, roughly, okay. But then it was all one continent, the other continent. But Sue tells me that Australian Aborigines and go back. The oldest piece of equipment or thing that's found has been dated as the oldest on the planet. Okay. I don't know if you know that or you ever thought about it.
No, I mean, I know that they're quite an ancient population, but I like you, I guess I'd heard or been told or something that basically the the womb of humanity was like Ethiopian or that general area sort of thing. So
yeah. What have you? Well, let me step one back. With this sort of time that I had now with the Commonwealth Games, I've really, for the first time, been in Australia. I feel very comfortable here in Australia. Okay, I really do, and something carried on during the Commonwealth Games too, because I was aware of what was happening to me, and how I was enjoying the Australians and so on. And it made me think, about being in Australia, and how I think I've put up a barrier for these last 4 years, and sort of not really accepting, and all of a sudden I did. And now when I watch those Aborigine people in Birmingham, and it did make me think of Africa. But then I realized I really need to know more about the roots of these Aborigines. Okay, and that brings me to I would like to either an audio book or a hard book, really, but something that gets to the roots, like you and I would want to get to. Okay. And have you got any ideas? Do you own any books, perhaps, that deal with it?
Not off the top of my head, but it's a really good question, actually. So one that's worthy of further investigation, for sure.
Okay, if you'd help me investigate, I would appreciate that immensely, because I do. I want to get to really as far down as you can go. Okay. And which I guess means a lot about what you've just been saying, but also their spirituality and their spiritual beliefs going back to the beginning, okay, and where the beginning was, okay, on the Australian, although I'm sure Australia was part of a bigger continent, okay, but that doesn't matter. That's not the point, whether it was or not. It's about the people, and maybe what is their story, about creation, the beginning of creation. That might be very interesting too, to actually find out what their story is, what's been carried on, what is their belief about the start of creation, because that'll be based on their beginnings.
I mean, from memory, but again, it's not from a reliable place. But from memory, a lot of the creation stories were animal based. Like serpents and other things that they might have got into a fight and pushed up a mountain range over there and laid down here, and this became a valley, and this river took in the form of a snake, and hence it sort of meanders down there, and so I think a lot of those stories tended to be more like they talk about the rainbow serpent, coming down out of the sky, sort of thing, and so there's lots of animal type analogies, I think, but I mean, let's do some work on it. It's a very, very good question.
And so I'm going to give it some serious thought over coming time, and just research. But coming from you, being an Australian, you would have a better feeling. You would know what I would enjoy reading.
No, that's good. Yeah, that's quite exciting.
Good. Yeah, probably a good place to stop, huh?
Okay, well, it's good to chat.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just so pleased to be able to tell you I'm feeling much better.
Yeah, well, that's good.
Yeah.
So much good. Yeah. And do you think a big part of that was just the inner ear condition, was it?
Yeah, absolutely. 100% the inner ear, because the inner ear then dictated my mood and my attitude, and not really wanting to talk because it was like an echo in my head, and so it was really an uncomfortable survival. Other things are still the same, but if I've got a clear head, then I'm okay.
That's true. Okay, doke. Will you take care then?
I've started to appreciate my head now.
All right.
Okay. Yeah,
Okay, then
you keep one.
I will, and I'll talk to you next week.
Great, man.
Okay
Okay.
then. Right, see you now.
Sure. Bye.